Well, if you spoke up against the Relationships and Sexuality Education curriculum, RSE, over the past 12 months, then all we can say to you is thank you. You have been heard. There has been huge progress, but we must remain vigilant. Let's check it out. So you'll remember that in the coalition agreement between National and New Zealand First at the end of last year, it said this: refocus the curriculum on academic achievement and not ideology, including the removal and replacement of the gender, sexuality and relationship-based education guidelines. But that had all the media and the teachers and the unions in a panic. Fancy expecting schools to focus on reading, writing and arithmetic and not be allowed to indoctrinate our kids with the ideology that they have, 112 genders to choose from and 200 plus sexualities. And just a month ago, they were promoting an open letter calling on the government to keep the current relationships and sexuality education guidelines in schools in Kura, despite the coalition promises to do otherwise. They had 26 mental health and rainbow organisations writing this open letter to the government. And the letter said the guidelines were beneficial for schools and students. Signed by Mental Health. Yeah, right. One of the signatories was the New Zealand Drug Foundation. Yes, the group that wants to legalise and normalise drug use. They're also concerned about gender identity and sexuality, apparently. So let's watch the interview where the News Hub AM show markets this open letter. And it's an interview with the head of the Mental Health Foundation, Sean Robinson. And this clip shows you why parents should be very wary of the Mental Health Foundation anywhere near their children. Have a watch.
Yeah, I think parents are always part of this process, but we need to flip it around. This is actually children's and young people's rights. It's not the parents' right to decide whether a young person should be equipped for life. It is the young person's right to be equipped for life. And as a nation, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, it's not the parents' right to decide whether a child should be equipped for life. It's their job. Mental Health Foundation and the state. Parents are just part of the process. Primary age should be indoctrinated with extreme sexuality and gender fluidity because Sean says it's his job. It's the state's job, not you as the parents. Shocking, eh? So they got about 4,000 signatures on the open letter. Now, Sean Robinson was also on News Talk ZB recently, and I actually text ZB during the interview to ask for a right of reply because you'll hear him complain about what Family First said about Pink Shirt Day. But at the very end, then he admits that what we were saying was right. Have a listen.
Relationship and sex education is not ideology. So that sounds to me like a very conservative agenda is being brought to bear.
That sounds to me like what they're talking about is anything to do with trans issues. Does that sound like that to you?
It definitely sounds like it could have a lot to do with trans issues, but the whole rainbow community. I mean, it's interesting, on Friday we had Pink Shirt Day, which is the big anti-bullying focus for the year. Now, we had Family First actually going public and saying, don't let your children wear pink shirts because it's not really about bullying, it's about supporting the gay and rainbow community.
Yeah, but come on, Sean, don't worry about them.
Absolutely it is.
Absolutely
it is.
Absolutely it is. But then the interviewer wanted to know from the Mental Health Foundation what was in the material. As you listen, you'll see he really had no idea. So he's complaining about a program and wants it retained, but he doesn't know exactly what's in it. Now, I actually text ZB back and said, don't worry about the right of reply. He shot himself in the foot. Have a listen and see what you think.
At what point in a kiddie's schooling do they start getting taught about gender stereotypes and the difference between gender and sex?
Look, it's very age appropriate. It's been developed, with education.
Yeah, but when?
And I don't know the exact age that happens. But
that's material, isn't it, Sean? I mean, it is material for us to be concerned or interested in what age these kids are learning about this stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think they should be being taught about sexuality, right from the get-go, about sexual identity and sexuality.
Well, what is the get-go? Five years old?
Well, children are human beings, and they move through their progress as in growing into adulthood, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, throughout their time at school. So it's not about teaching them about sex at 5, but it is about age-appropriate understandings about the difference between genders. And
okay, that's okay. But is it not okay? Yeah. Like, I just wonder if you guys are getting too excited about something that we don't even know where this is going. Like, is it not okay for the government to have a look at it and see whether it is all age appropriate? Just do a little review.
Well, they just did that in 2020. Why do they need to do it again 4 years later?
Because it's the last lot, and the last lot, Sean, were kooky as.
Well, it seems like a very... what schools are telling us is this is a waste of time and resources. The current guidelines work incredibly well. If this is based on an ideological anti-trans agenda, then right-thinking New Zealanders should be
Come on, Sean.
should be thoroughly
this
opposed
cabinet's
to it.
Not going to let Winston win on that kooky stuff.
Well, one can hope so, and certainly it's very interesting because actually these guys by Winston's own party back when they were in coalition with
you've got nothing to worry
the John
about.
Key government. Oh, I think we've got plenty to worry about because I think what New Zealand First has a record of doing is getting alongside whatever group and whatever racism or bigotry is in fashion at the time in order to get enough to get over that 5% threshold. So,
yeah, it's funny. He praises New Zealand First, but then he hates them. I don't think Sean voted for New Zealand First. I mean, I'm just guessing, but But interestingly, then they go back to their dumb statements about the rights of children and this moral panic.
Because it is young people that have been asking for guidance on sexuality and relationships.
Yeah, but it's also their parents, Sean. It is actually our responsibility as parents to tell them what's okay for them to hear. Otherwise, they'd be on their bloody smartphones 24/7.
Look, I would turn that around and say it's young people's right to be given well-researched, well-developed guidance around relationships and sexuality. Parents still have the right to withdraw their kids from these classes.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of moral panic going on out there, I think, by people who seem to think that somehow their rights as parents are being overridden. But you need to remember that their children have rights too.
Yeah.
Children are not the possessions of their parents. Children are human beings, and they deserve to be given guidance on some of the most, difficult things in growing into adults.
Yeah. That's what you call a car crash media interview. And you can see why I text back and said I don't need a right of reply. You see, the media has never allowed me to come on to give specifics about what's in the RSE program. They never have, and they never will, because they really don't want to know, because it would destroy the narrative and it would show exactly what people are concerned about. Anyways, on Sunday, just gone, the Minister of Education was on Q&A with Jack Tame on TVNZ and was asked about this issue. And here was her comments.
Your commitment to a knowledge-based curriculum, should transgender issues be taught in our schools?
Look, what we've committed to under our agreement with the New Zealand First Party is to replace and remove and replace the RSE guidelines. And the reason that we're doing that is because we've had huge feedback, not only from parents, but a lot of principals who've actually sidled up to me and said, Erica, you need to get rid of it. It's problematic. And the reasons for that are because of the age appropriateness of some of the material and the fact that in those guidelines, it says things like here's a way you can spread this right throughout the curriculum, which means that parents don't have the ability to say, actually, I think this is a responsibility for my family to teach, and I'm going to pull my child out of that lesson.
Because they can take them out of health lessons, right?
They absolutely can.
But you're suggesting that they're taught through all sorts of spaces.
The problem that we have...
So in principle, though, back to my question, given your commitment to knowledge-based curriculum, in principle, do you think transgender issues should be taught in our schools?
It's not up to me to decide what goes in the curriculum. I'm not an expert. What we will do is get experts in to decide what is in and at what age is appropriate to teach them, because that's been the problem. It's the age appropriateness of when we introduce these topics.
You're mandating plenty of other things.
Well, the health curriculum is mandated, right? So the health and PE curriculum is mandated. What the problem, which I didn't get to before, is that this RSE guideline, and many people out there won't understand, it's not a curriculum. It's a guideline for boards.
It's a guideline, and it's optional. For schools, it's for schools through their boards, and optional for parents to pull their kids out.
It's been very confusing. And so there are teachers out there and schools who are implementing it like a curriculum, hence why we have these problems. So the answer is to say, look, get rid of it. Take a look at the health and PE curriculum, which, by the way, is compulsory and I expect to be taught. And health and relationship and sexuality are so important to be in that curriculum. We have to get it right. We're not a set and forget government. We're listening to parents, and we'll take another look. And I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, it's hard to fault what the Minister of Education, Erica Stanford, said, that she'd had huge feedback from both parents and principals that says that the RSE guidelines are problematic. It's age inappropriate, and it encourages the material to be spread through other subjects, so parents can't remove their children if they object. Now, of course, there's many other issues with it, including the biologically flawed gender ideology and the extreme sexuality messaging. But the real issue is what replaces the current guidelines and who are the experts. If it's anyone from PATHA, Inside Out, or the University of Waikato's Trans Health Research Lab, or the current Minister of Health, Mental Health, Matt Ducey, then the result will be problematic. So we'll continue to monitor this closely. But if you did speak up against the RSE curriculum, you were heard. Thank you.